What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Nash here. Welcome back to the channel. If you guys ever notice that my voice is a little bit deeper than normal, yeah, I had a really interesting night last night on social media. A lot of haters, claiming that something is me. That's something that you don't ever want to deal with when you've been on social media for a long time, like I have. Anyway, that being said, today's video is going to be rather interesting because for today's WWE news video, there's actually a lot to talk about, including the latest on what happened to Randy Orton. Well, he got injured. How? Y'all have to find out. SummerSlam 2022 taking place in the UK. This would be the first time since '92. So what would it be? 30 years? It's crazy. Very crazy. NXT UK working on having fans come back to their shows, and this first one I'm going to talk about. Several NXT call-ups to be expected during the draft. So, this is the first one that I'm going to be talking about. You guys know tomorrow night on SmackDown, at the time that I'm recording this video, which is actually Thursday, September 30th, you'll know that tomorrow night on SmackDown, we are going to have the first of 2 nights of the WWE draft. Excuse me. And if you guys didn't watch this past Monday's episode of WWE's Biggest Issue, I highly recommend watching it, because I talk about which superstars from Raw should get drafted to SmackDown. And in this upcoming Monday's episode, I'm going to be talking about which superstars I think should be drafted to Raw from SmackDown. And apparently it was reported by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer Radio. Big shout out, no copyrights here. You guys know how this works. He said, quote, from what I was told today, USA and Fox do know a few things, like the key guys. So the key guys are decided. Nothing else is decided. Everything can change. Right now, NXT is supposed to be. There's supposed to be people drafted from NXT to freshen up both brands. The person who told me that also said, quote, this can also change completely tomorrow, but they're under the impression there will be many people from NXT, and the NXT guys are supposed to be a significant part of it. So what I find interesting is that this was talked about, was it like sometime this past week, and it's interesting because when it comes to NXT call-ups, usually it would take place like right around the time of Survivor Series, potentially the Royal Rumble. Even also, it normally would take place on the weekend, or rather the week after WrestleMania. Like I know that Robert Roode got called up to SmackDown right after SummerSlam, and I know that King Nakamura actually got called up to NXT, called up to SmackDown on the Tuesday after WrestleMania, back when SmackDown was known as SmackDown Live. So I find it unique that we're getting NXT call-ups during the draft, and it's interesting too because you guys know Mandy Rose was a part of the main roster for I think since 2017, if I remember correctly. I think since 2017, like right around there, and she ended up being drafted. She ended up being traded from SmackDown to Raw because of the Miz and Morrison and their hatred for Otis holding the Money in the Bank briefcase. So that story, if you will, was completely scrapped from out of nowhere, and as of now, she went back to NXT. Ironically enough, in exchange for Mandy Rose, the main roster got Aaliyah from the Robert Stone brand. She quit the Robert Stone brand as part of the story for her to get called up to the main roster, and apparently, it seems as if we're also going to be getting superstars like Austin Theory and Dakota Kai as well, which is also interesting. My question is this, because there's been rumors going around saying that Hit Row is also being talked about to get called up to the main roster. My question is it even worth it? No, it's not, because we all know how it works with factions getting called up from NXT to the main roster. They stay afloat for a bit. They get 3, maybe 4 matches, going, and then they split. Then they split, and half of them go back to NXT. It happened with Sanity when they got called up in 2017? Yeah, I think 2017, 2018. And it just didn't work out. It didn't work out. And out of all four members of Sanity, Nikki ASH is the only one that stayed in WWE, which is kind of interesting in my opinion. But yeah, again, honestly, I'm looking forward to the draft. Can't wait to see who gets drafted to Raw, who gets drafted to SmackDown, what call-ups we're getting. But again, big shout out to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer for that piece. No copyrights here. You guys know how this works with the algorithm. You guys know how it works. Big shout out, of course. Next, so now the question is this: are we going to get SummerSlam in the UK? Well, apparently, it's been reported by Alex McCarthy of TalkSport. Again, shout out. He talked about. He said, "quote, been working on this one for a couple weeks. The Principality Stadium in Cardiff is the front runner for SummerSlam in the UK next year. Meetings took place during the tour last week, and great progress was made on a WWE UK pay-per-view." So it's interesting because the last time we saw a pay-per-view in the UK, it was back in 1992 at SummerSlam, which I still have my program from that night. I still have my program. Where are you? Here it is. I still have the SummerSlam program. I believe. Let's see. August 29th, 1992. Crazy enough, 1992. Hang on. There we go. Anyway, sorry guys, I had to adjust my camera for a second. It took place inside Wembley Stadium, where it was announced that there was 80,355 fans that night, and the main event was the British Bulldog against Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title in the main event, which is crazy because we all know when it comes to pay-per-views and when it comes to hang on guys, sorry, something came up on Instagram and no, it has nothing to do with me. Okay. Anyway, you guys know when it comes to pay-per-views and whatnot, usually the main event is either like a big one-on-one matchup, big tag team match, or it's usually for a world title, but never the Intercontinental title, which is kind of crazy. The stadium, the Principality Stadium has a capacity of 74,500 people that can be filled. However, depending on how WWE sets the stage up, it might not be what they want it to be, but we will see. Honestly, I'm kind of excited about that. If SummerSlam does take place in Cardiff, Wales, this would mean that this would be the first pay-per-view in 30 years that a pay-per-view is taking place in the UK. And I'm not talking of, or actually I take that back. I believe there was another time. I think since 2002, actually 20 years. Actually 20 years. Actually, sorry, counting the pay-per-view known as Insurrection. If you guys remember that pay-per-view, that was a crazy pay-per-view. Weird name, by the way. Weird name for a pay-per-view, which is interesting. But yeah, this would be the first time in 20 years that a pay-per-view has taken place in the UK, but the first time in 30 years that SummerSlam has taken place in the UK, which is interesting. But you know what? That brings me to the question of the day. What is your dream match for SummerSlam 2022 if it takes place in Cardiff, Wales? Let me know in the comments below. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. But that brings me now. Speaking of UK, apparently NXT UK is reportedly working on having fans come back for their shows. So again, once again, big shout out to Alex McCarthy of TalkSport. No copyrights here. You guys know how this works. He reports that the BT Sports Studio has been BT Sports has been talking to WWE and NXT management on becoming the permanent home for NXT UK with fans in attendance. One thing that I find interesting is that BT Sport is that studio is actually kind of a small set, which makes sense, but at the same time, it's interesting because when you think about NXT UK, you think of some of the different venues that we had for NXT UK. Obviously, the Emperor's Ballroom, Royal Albert Hall Ballroom, just so many other places. Cardiff, Glasgow, all over the UK, and we've had a lot of crazy matches throughout the brand's history. Obviously, Imperium versus British Strong Style, Imperium versus Gallus and Ilya Dragunov, who is now the NXT UK champion, and we know that it'll be A-Kid one-on-one with Dragunov for the NXT UK title, which that match I am looking forward to. That is going to be a crazy match. That's going to be one hell of a matchup, which I'm really, really looking forward to. However, you guys know a couple weeks ago on NXT UK, there were vignettes that were aired for a young man named Bailey Matthews, who just so happens to be the son of NXT General Manager William Regal, who will go by the name of Charlie Dempsey. As far as why they chose that, well, that's hard to decipher, of course. But honestly, having fans come back would be quite the interesting route, because you guys know with NXT, they finally have a full capacity crowd inside the Performance Center, which is kind of ironic. And then of course for Raw and SmackDown, it's the exact same thing. They're now at full capacity, but apparently they have to wear the masks because of the pandemic, of course. and if NXT UK does have fans back, it'll probably be at I would probably say 25% capacity. I would say at 25% capacity, maybe even 10% because of how small that venue is. I mean Royal Albert Hall. I mean, Emperor's Ballroom and whatnot. That's one thing because they can have. I think they can have like 7,000, 8,000 people if my memory serves right. But we'll see. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting because the last year, this entire calendar year, and ever since NXT UK was back on the air, back in what was it, October of last year, if I remember right? I think so. I think it was October last year. Oh no. September 23rd. I think was the date. Let me go to my calendar really quickly. I think it was September 23rd. Let's see. September 24th, I think was the time. Was the day that we had that NXT UK had aired once again, which is kind of cool. But I'm curious about it. Can't wait to see what happens with NXT UK. Can't wait to see that matchup. That's gonna be incredible. But now the question is this: what happened to Randy Orton? Well, apparently it's been reported that he is not clear to compete. Obviously, if you guys watched Raw this past Monday, that Randy Orton missed out on Raw this past Monday, where we saw AJ Styles AJ Styles go up against Riddle, in a losing effort to Styles, if you will. And I believe, and you guys know, the last match that Orton had was actually a few weeks ago on Raw, where he battled AJ Styles, and as of now, no one knows why. No one knows why, but my guess, it may have something to do with his previous injuries. His previous shoulder injuries. It could be the case, but no one knows. As far as who else has had surgery, Sheamus had to undergo nose surgery for the second time. Where he broke his nose again just last week on Raw against Jeff Hardy, and Alexa Bliss has been set to undergo sinus surgery, which was reported earlier that she was going to be taking some time off of WWE for a few months, which could mean that the old Alexa Bliss that we knew from last year, from 2020, when she had teamed up with Nikki ASH, that Alexa Bliss could come back, but it could also mean that the current Alexa Bliss that we saw this past Sunday at Money in the Bank could also return as well, which is which is also very viable, but only time will tell. Again, no one knows why Orton is being injured. If he, what his injuries are. If he is injured, then obviously shoutouts to Orton. Obviously shoutouts to Randy Orton. Here's hoping for a full and speedy recovery. I know that Riddle is gonna be missing Randy Orton, no doubt. So we'll see. We will see. But guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Again, question of the day: What is your guys' dream match for SummerSlam next year if it takes place in Cardiff, Wales? Let me know in the comments below. Big shout out to the individuals that I have mentioned, or I guess the reporters that I mentioned. No copyrights here. No, I don't own the copyrights. You guys know how this works. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel, you guys want to see more WWE news videos, which gets posted every Thursday. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be down in the description below. And if you guys have any fan mail that you want to send me and want me to open up on the channel, my address will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.